In this video, I'm going to talk about defensive positioning for first base and for second base, and we're going to start with first base. So where you set up ultimately depends on your athletic ability, and what I mean by that, if you feel you get good jumps or you're quick on your feet, you have good range, you could go to your right quickly, you might be able to move up and to your right a bit. If you feel maybe you're not the fastest or you struggle getting back to the bag in enough time, you might need to stay back. So if you've never played first before, if you're still trying to figure out where you want to stand, a good rule of thumb is you'll go to the bag, you'll take about 3 to 4 big steps forward and about like 2 to 3 steps off the line. I was actually talking to one of my former teammates at Appalachian State, Hannah Dow. She played first base for us, and I was just kind of picking her brain, and she always told me that a good tip for first baseman is know how many steps you took. So if you go to first and you take, let's just say 3 steps, you know if that ball is hit to shortstop, you have 3 steps to get back to the bag, so you don't have to look at the bag, you can just focus on that ball. So know how many steps you take, and then the more you practice it, it's just going to become second nature to take those steps, don't have to look at the bag, and then that way you can set up. Now let's talk about if there's a runner on first base. So if there's a runner on first, 2 things are going to happen that you need to be aware of. 1, we need to make sure we take that bunt away. So instead of 2 steps or 3, you might want to take 4 or 5 because you got to take that bunt away. Some teams will have the first baseman back, just holding the bag. Obviously that's fine, all you have to do is receive it. But if you're not holding that bag and you need to crash, you got to creep a little bit. Now with that, you need to make sure that if she doesn't bunt, you can still get back to first base. So you can play around with it a little bit, make sure you're taking the bunt away, but you also can get back to the bag in order to receive that throw. So with that, you are also going to want to be playing off the line just a little bit. And the reason for that is, and we'll talk about second baseman's positioning when we get there in just a little bit, but our second baseman is going to be playing right in the middle between second base and first base. And the reason for that, if there's a ground ball hits that left side, she's got to make sure that she's covering second base for that double play. If the hitter lays down a bunt, she needs to make sure that she's getting first base to cover that bag. So we don't want to hug the line because this entire area is going to be open. We want to take just a couple steps off in order to still field the ball to our right. We are also going to be able to field the ball to our left because we only have about 2 to 3 steps to work with, or it's a foul ball. So now if there's a runner at second base, you're probably going to be set up normal. It's honestly going to depend on what type of hitter is at the plate. If they're power, you can play back a little bit. If they got speed or they have a lot of small ball, you can be in. Just depends on what type of hitter is up. Now let's say there's a runner on third base, or let's even say second and third. But the biggest thing is that runner at third, she can't score. Let's say it's a close game and you want to hold that runner. What we don't want to do if we get a ground ball, we don't want to field it and we don't want to run back to the bag to touch the bag to get the out. If we do that, we're turning our back on the runner and she's going to be taken off. What I want to do is I want to field that ground ball and I want to run in with 2 hands, making sure I'm securing the ball, and I want to tag the girl that just hit it. The reason for that, if I am running in towards home, that runner at third is going to see that, and more times than not, she's not going to take off. Now, if she has a great jump and it's a close game, tie game, and they really need that run, she'll probably take off. But good thing for me is that I'm already running in. I can either A, tag the girl and immediate flip home, or if I don't have enough time to tag and flip and I see her take off, I'm not even going to worry about the runner and I'm going to just go ahead and toss it home to get that out. So know the situation. I will say too, and this isn't really about defense, but if you are that hitter in that situation and you see the first baseman running to come tag you, don't keep running, just stop. It's going to kill some time. She might get distracted and keep going after you while that run scores. Now let's talk about second base. So I did a video on positioning for third and short. Second is pretty similar to shortstop, but there's a couple things that differ. So if you are playing second base, and it's tough to see in this camera angle because I'm not able to get first and second in, you want to make sure that you set up about halfway in between first and second. And the reason for that is you need to make sure that that if you're playing straight up, you need to cover some ground to your right, you need to have some good range, but you also need to make sure if a bunt is laid down that you can get to first base. So playing about middle behind the baseline is great. You don't want to play, in my opinion, you don't want to play baseline because you take your range away. You want to play behind the baseline because a couple of things. One, you got more range, but two, that's not a far throw to first base. So you've got a little bit more time that you can play back. Now let's talk about if there's a runner on first base. So your positioning is going to be about the same. You want to make sure that you're not shading too much to the right or too much to the left for two reasons. One, if a ball is hit on the ground to the left side, you need to make sure you can get to second base in enough time to receive it and eventually turn that double play. However, you also need to make sure that you can get to first base if that hitter lays down a bunt. So if I'm shaded too much up the middle and that girl lays down a bunt, that's a really far run for me. So another thing, and some coaches do this, is they'll have the second baseman cover the steal if there's a slapper up, because they want to take away that left side, they want to hold that shortstop. So it's one of those things where you know the first baseman is staying back, second baseman, you can be shaded up the middle because you need to get that, or cover the bag for that steal. I will say slappers recognize that. If you see the second baseman is covering second, you know first baseman staying back, so lay a bunt down first baseline. Now if there's a runner on second base, we're gonna be playing behind the line because if we get a ball hit to us at second base, that girl gonna have a good jump, she'll be taking third, no problem. So we're gonna give ourselves some range, stay behind the line. If there is a runner on third and your coach doesn't care about that runner, you stay in the same spot, you stay back just so you can give yourself some range. If that runner is at third base and your coach does not want her to score, you need to be baseline or a step in front just like you would at shortstop.